Okay, this video is going to cover a topic I kind of didn't know existed and seems completely ridiculous for many reasons. So I'm going to try to logically bust this one up. This one involves Senator Ted Cruz.
In your judgment, are voter ID laws racist?
He's a career politician. I don't care for career politicians. To me, that's facilitating corruption because these people stay in office, figure out how to get around the system, and most of them just spit out self-righteous crap all the time. But sometimes they really prove a point, a good point, which is coming up right now.
In your judgment, are voter ID laws racist?
Thank you for that question. So it depends. One thing we have to stop doing is treating all voter ID laws as the same.
So it depends is your answer?
Yes, that's my answer.
Okay, so what voter ID laws are racist?
Apologies, Mr. Cruz, your state of Texas, perhaps?
Notice the smirk? And then she also says,
Perhaps.
meaning she doesn't know.
Okay, so you think the entire state of Texas is racist. What about requiring an ID to vote is racist?
Not wasting any time here, getting straight to the point.
So I think, sir, that's pretty reductive. I'm not saying the entire state of Texas is racist.
Cruise your state of Texas.
You just said my state of Texas.
Cruise your state of Texas.
So you tell me,
Your
what
voter
about
ID
the Texas voter ID laws is
absolutely.
racist?
So the fact that the voter ID law was put into place to diminish the political power of Latinos.
She can't be serious. There's a good plot twist at the end of the video based on what she just said.
With racist intent, and had been found to have
You're
racist
asserting that.
intent.
What's your evidence for that?
The federal district court that first resolved the constitutionality of Texas's voter ID law.
Okay, so your view is voter ID laws are racist. How about you, Mr. Yang?
I agree with Professor Tulsa. Voter ID laws can be racist.
Okay, that's
another
two.
context.
Mr. Science?
I'd love to know how this works. Watch this guy.
There are some voter ID laws that are racially discriminatory in intent.
How about in practice? In intent, fine, you say there's some racist with a malevolent intent lurking in the back of their mind. But let's just talk about it as a practical matter. When I go to vote, they ask me for my ID. I pull out my ID, I show it to them, I vote. Is that racist?
If the law that requires you to do that was motivated by racially discriminatory intent
What about the
under
effect?
our
Set aside
Constitution,
intent. Set aside intent. I'm asking about the effect.
yes, in effect,
Okay,
I think that
Ms.
there are
Reardon.
discriminatory effects from a number of voter ID laws.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Reardon.
I'm going to give the witness a chance to answer the question. Go ahead, Mr. Sine.
Yes, in effects, I think many voter ID laws are discriminatory. And in design, they are designed to have that effect.
Okay, Ms. Reardon.
No, sir.
Now, this part particular is a pretty good explanation.
Mr. Van Spakovsky.
No, particularly because every single state that has passed an ID law has put in a provision to provide a free ID to anyone who doesn't have one. The turnout numbers show it has no effect. I would remind everyone that the current version of the Texas voter ID law for in-person voting, the Obama administration agreed in court.
The federal district court that first resolved the constitutionality of Texas's voter ID law.
Okay.
In a court filing that they were satisfied with it and it was not discriminatory.
I have to say this is the wildly partisan nature of the Democrats' proposal. All three of the Democratic witnesses maintained to this committee that voter ID laws are racist. So let me tell you who disagrees with that. 35 states have voter ID laws in effect. 81% of voters in America disagree with the radical views proposed by the Democrats and the Democratic witnesses. Not just 81% of Americans, 77% of black voters in America support voter ID laws. 78% of Hispanic voters in America support voter ID laws. It's racist.
So the fact that the voter ID law was put into place to diminish the political power of Latinos.
I know Hispanic and Latino are technically different. Well, there's not that much difference. It's like saying that British people are different than Australian.
Maldev should think about that. 81% of low-income Americans support voter ID laws. And yet, what this bill is about is putting radicals in charge of saying if you require an ID to vote, that is racist and must be struck down. This is all about partisan power.
I went and kind of looked up some of the legislation, and saying it's racist is like, it's beyond stretch. I mean, there's nothing there to really say definitively it's racist, because it's not. It covers everybody, any American citizen. So that doesn't make sense. Plus, it's not backed up by, like I said, the legislation, which is a very, very edge of your seat reading. I would suggest reading it. But I figured I'd slam this one with my Logic hammer and get it out of the way. Thanks for watching, everybody. Y'all have a good one.